Hey, Dan Passarelli here. Well, the S&P 500 closed up 1.1% today, with SPY closing at 685.24, another new all-time high by a mile. Holy cow. And there's reason for that, and we're going to talk about it. But first, yesterday, I came home from being away for a week. As you saw, I had a different background in my videos last week. Back here at MTM World Headquarters, if you will. And last night, I was making dinner, and I was watching the news, and there was some thing about a medical procedure or something, and there was a graph on the screen that the doctor was looking at on the show, this Nightline or something. And I just thought about the simplicity of looking at a graph, looking at a chart. We make stock charts so mystical and complicated, but they really just tell a really simple story. I want to look at the story that this chart is telling about the U.S.-China relations. If we go to this day right here, this is October 9th. The market did make an all-time high, and that is when everything was status quo with the U.S. and China's relations. Nothing out of the ordinary. The meeting that is scheduled to happen this week was scheduled. Everything was fine. The next day is when it was announced that China was sending some emails or memos to countries and talking about cutting supply lines and blah, blah, blah. You can go back and look at the video where I talked about that. But this is where the trouble started. And the market fell quite a bit. And then the next day, this day, is when Trump said, don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. And the market kind of went a little back and forth. And now here is where we are today. Now this is kind of massively higher. Let's see, 685 compared with 671. So 14 points, more than 2-point-something% higher in a little over 2 weeks. When we're back to kind of where we were right here. We just sort of are assuming that we erased this day. And so why the market is 2-point-something% higher than it was before the bad news came in and got erased is pretty puzzling. It makes me think about a common trader idiom. They say, buy the rumor, sell the news. Well, this was buy the rumor and buy the rumor again, and probably buy the news too. Just basically buy everything. Don't ask any questions, buy everything. Except, of course, options. Options, the VIX is at 1579, which is not by any stretch of the imagination some sort of all-time low, but it's about as low as it's been in the past 6 months. It's been just a smidge lower, but that's about it. I find that kind of interesting, and it makes me wonder if the actual market volatility might pick up like we talked about in some of our videos. I mean, this week we do have a couple of catalysts. We have the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, where it's expected that the Fed is going to cut rates by 25 basis points. Of course, what matters is what people talk about after that, specifically what Jerome Powell talks about afterwards. And then, of course, the meeting between Xi and Trump in South Korea. And then finally, some of the earnings that are coming out, because there's some big important earnings coming out this week. And those are the three things that we're going to be focusing on. And so we'll see if the news can be good enough to catch up to this buy the rumor a second time trade that happened over the last 2 days, especially today, though. If the news doesn't somehow get miraculously bullish enough to catch up to this pretty massive rise, then do we sell off and fill these gaps like is common? Or do we just stay in this level and continue higher? As market news comes out and I post more videos, We'll address that and talk about the best way to handle the market. Hope that helps. This is Dan Passarelli, Trade Smart.